Hey there, and good morning to you. Let's get right into it today. We have a great session here. It's been a very interesting week. We talked about resume. We talked about how to capture the essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper. That was Tuesday's lecture. Yesterday, Wednesday, we talked about how you take that single sheet of storytelling all about you. And now how do we take that to LinkedIn and transform that to a three-dimensional sales brochure all about you that naturally drives the reader to a singular conclusion. Today, we're going to take how we shaped that story across the resume, across the LinkedIn profile, and now we're going to get ready to interview. Interviewing is incredibly important. It's a great way to expand your value and really understand your industry, the companies, the players, and really where you are compared to your competitors. All that I'm describing really all week long is about taking back control. Comes back to this concept we've talked about every single day about not letting somebody else think for ourselves. Job search is a sales process, and the interview part of job search is a larger sales process than people really imagine. It's where you take full control of your discussion. Now, so you can see all of them. You see Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to end this special short week of sessions with supercharging your job search. So once you have the right LinkedIn, once you have the right resume, you really understand what your compelling story is that you're going to tell during the interview. How do I get more interviews? How do I perform a better job search? That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. I hope you watch, or if you can't tune in, you can watch all of these on replay. Now, today, interview intervention. Let's get right into it after a sip of coffee. Named this one on purpose as well. You heard me say that when I talked about resume renovation and choosing renovation to really talk about how it's not a small cosmetic change. It's breaking down the walls. Here, most of us need an intervention before our next interview. Someone to stop us from what we're doing or not doing in our interview. The challenge in interviewing is we fall into this trap of thinking it's question answer. Oh, I'm going in there to answer questions. It's like, you're not really going in there to answer questions. You're going to use this device of the Q&A to position and sell yourself. And we're going to teach you about that today, and we'll teach you how to put together a very full plan, the same kind of plan that you would need as a business going in to sell your wares, your product, your services to another business. It's the same level of sales that is necessary about creating this interview plan. So when we create an interview plan, we have to think about all sorts of reasons, including why they don't select us or why they don't move us forward, or all these different things. Let me just get over to the right slide. Sorry about that. We are just a couple slides off, and we're going to get to the right slide. Right there it is. I think I have to reshare with you. Hold on one second. Let's just represent that screen so you can see it. There it is. And add to stream. So many buttons to hit. So many buttons. Okay. So interviewing is about influence. It's about the nuance. It's really about influencing, about your value and all those things you bring to the table. And it's all either elevated or lost in the nuance of your communications. The communications in the interview is all about your personal branding, all about your positioning of yourself as this product that is better than the competitor's product. You've got to be better. So you go back to Tuesday's lecture this week where we did the deep dive interview and we came up with 8 or 9 pages all about you. Go back and watch Tuesday's resume renovation lecture for that. Now we take those 8 or 9 pages and we think about everything that constitutes your brand, all the different things that separate you out from others, the things that make you special. Of course, we make sure that goes across all of your materials, your LinkedIn profile, everything else. But now you have to bring it into your discussion in the interview process. And success here in the interview stage is where it's all going to be won or lost. This is a sales process, something we really don't like, and a dating process. Ugh, the two worst things in most people's minds combined together. And yet that's the challenge. That's where we have to take back control. That's where we have to make our case about us being the very, very best ones. But the trap is it's not an interrogation. It's not a cross-examination, even though it might feel like it. That's just technique. to get you to say something, maybe to drop your veil or your canned answer and give them a more honest answer. But we have to think about that this is really our job. This is our job every single time that we go into the interview, is to engage them and to teach them how to select us. So it's still their choice, but they realize by the end we're the very, very best one, and we're teaching them how to select us. Now that means, as I talked about both yesterday and on Tuesday's resume lecture for both resume and LinkedIn, same in the interview process, you somehow have to not only be cookie cutter perfect, which isn't good enough, because then you're going to be paid less. Oh, number three, I'll take number three. I'm going to pay you less. Oh, you don't want less? I'll take number two, take number five. Doesn't matter. You're all cookie cutter interchangeable. So even in the interview portion, we have to, yes, be interchangeable, but somehow be different, exceptional, special. If you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you're suffering like most people in their career are suffering by doing really great work under so much pressure, but then they have really terrible storytelling of their deliverables across their resume, across their LinkedIn. They've been beaten down so much in the process, they don't feel like they can carry the flag of what your own cheerleading. That is your job, is to lift and sell. So if it's difficult for you, which it is for most people, because we're so emotionally close to our own background, I care deeply and I'm not emotionally attached to your background, so I can see how to stage it in a very, very different way that's still absolutely letter true, but it really elevates your value. So whether it's myself or someone else, work with someone that can help lift your value. Check out everything over on SelfRecruiter.com. That will help you a lot. A lot of resources there, even if we don't work directly together. My book is a great resource. It's a game plan laid out for your entire job search. It's the roadmap. It's the strategy. It's the, what if I get the wrong offer? How do I renegotiate? It's all in there, including the call strategy plan. I recommend you check that out on Amazon or over on my SelfRecruiter website. Also, rewatch the LinkedIn lecture several times. There is so much to absorb about LinkedIn, and it is the de facto social networking website for our work life. We must have a clear handle on the fact that it's really an advertising, marketing, and perception management platform for our career. And if we use these tools wisely, we're going to have really, really nice different results than we might have had. Check out my LinkedIn itself. Click on my articles. You'll find a lot of articles that will help you avoid a lot of the traps that I talk about in this lecture series. Now, today, as in all week, it's about becoming a self-recruiter. How am I going to become this one great recruiter that looks after one great candidate, which is me? That means it's really everything, right? You got to do the strategy planning, got to do the road mapping, got to think about all my value points. I have to get myself all revved up for the interview. I've got to, when it didn't go well, I got to pick myself up with the bootstraps and dust myself all off. We have to be all of these things along with the wise presenter. Check out another lecture I have over my YouTube channel. It's also on my SelfRecruiter under the blog. Check out one that calls How to Be a Presentation Guru. Even if you're not presenting in your normal work life on a regular basis, we need to become a presentation guru even for our interview process today, because much of it happens over video, at least at certain stages. So our goal is to become this one great recruiter that looks after ourselves and takes care of everything about us. You know, we don't like to see that job, go after the job. Maybe we get the interview before the job, and then magically we get the interview or not, because that's not typically how it really works. Everyone's sitting back doing the same darn thing you're doing. They're hitting that darn button, and it ends up with most times we're in a very unhappy place. They can't see my value next to these 1,000, 2,000 other candidates. I can't seem to break through the screening process in HR. Why can't the decision maker who would know my value get to talk with me? I'm a big believer in breaking through all of that and going directly to the decision maker, bypassing HR when necessary, which is all detailed in yesterday's lecture, Building Your Career Brand with LinkedIn and how to use it for your job search. Check that one out. But really, even in the interview process, it's about this balance between the usual customer expected and this unusual, unconventional approach that gives unexpected results. It's simply changing the rules. Well, I have to go in and answer questions. Who said? Well, it's a Q&A. Okay, but don't go in and answer questions. Don't mishear that. Of course, we're going to answer the questions, but we're going to use that simple device of the Q&A really to not answer the questions that are asked unless they're valuable to me. If they're not valuable to me, I'm going to rephrase them and answer a different question, which is what a politician that's effective does. Never answers the question they don't want to answer. They answer a different question. We're going to walk you through all that today. So be ready to change these rules, because your job is not to hope and let them pick you. I mean, that may or may not happen. The job is to motivate them to select you. Oh, this is the one I have to have on my team. This is the product that I have to have. I don't want the store brand. I want the national brand. You know what? Don't be mediocre, of only moderate quality, not very good, ordinary, average, middling, middle of the road, uninspired, undistinguished. I could go on and on and on. Fair to middling, no great shakes, not up to much, and Bush League. Half the workforce, pains me in my heart to say, is only mediocre. Showing up just for the paycheck. I get it. We all have bills to do. We all have things we have to pay for. The bills to do. We got to keep this gerbil on the wheel going. I get it. But why don't you show up and put a little heart and soul into your work? No matter what your function, doesn't really matter. Put a little heart and soul into your work. You will naturally rise to be the top 1, 2, or 3, or that top, say, 1% of the people in your field. And you'll also enjoy your work a lot better. Plus, you'll be much more valuable to other companies. So if our competitor's mediocre, what do you have to be? So we can see it. Little tiny bit better than mediocre. Put you ahead of most people. Again, back to the idea of putting just a little bit of heart and soul into what you do. You will naturally be the top 1, 2, 3 in that field. You should be seen. Now, as we prepare for the interview, we have to think about our story. You're going into the interview not to answer questions, but to answer questions with little story segments that position and sell your value that they can imagine would be beneficial to them. But we also have to think and be ready. And we have to think of the style of the interview. And was I prepared for it? Was it scheduled in advance? Was it on the telephone? Well, first off, if you don't have your interview scheduled in advance, and maybe you have one of these things, something like this, and your phone rings and you go, oh, ABC company. I applied to ABC company. I can't wait. Don't answer the phone. What? Don't answer the phone. ABC company is already calling you. They're demonstrating they will take your call back. I'm interested in John. They'll take my call back. This is an unscheduled call. I am not prepared. I am not ready. I need to sit and think about, marketing message coming into my watch. A friend of mine has a health issue today. I was looking to make sure there wasn't a health issue popping up. I'm like, it's a marketing message. Sorry about that. So if it's not scheduled, you're not ready. Let it go to voicemail. Glean from the voicemail. Is it positive? Is it just rudimentary, normal stuff? Is it somehow like over the top about me? Those are all different scenarios that you may react differently. Glean what you can from the voicemail. Call them right back if it's not scheduled. If you happen to answer the phone because it's automatic and we didn't think about it, and suddenly it's ABC company. Hi, is this John Grant? I'd love to speak with you. Absolutely. Gosh, it's so fantastic to hear from you. By the way, I am just walking into a meeting with my tuna fish sandwich. It doesn't matter who the meeting is, but just walking into a meeting, but I would love to speak with you. How about tomorrow at 10 a.m.? And you schedule it with enough time to prep yourself, to prepare. This is an important sales meeting. Are you ready to sell? I don't really think so yet. We're going to take you through the whole plan. So make sure it's scheduled. Other advantage to being on the telephone is they cannot see you. Therefore, if you haven't already detected it, and you're going to see it toward the end of the interview as I show you my entire video setup, John is standing. I always recommend, as a speaker, whether you're on the telephone or doing a conference call or whatever you're doing, you do it standing. First off, you have a muscle in the middle of your body called a diaphragm that controls all of your breath and energy. By standing, you release it. You allow your vocal register to drop just a little bit. You can have much more presence, and presence wins the day on the telephone. Plus, if they can't see you, besides that advantage, I could do my interview not in my home office if I'm lucky enough to have one of those, but I could do my interview in the kitchen, on the kitchen counter, which tends to be higher. And now I can have my resume out. Do you know how many people have misquoted their own background to me? By like several years. I'm like, Really? You're there in 2004? Like you were there in 2002. It's like right here on the piece of paper. You don't even have your story straight. What else should I not believe about you? Cannot misquote your own details. You have your resume handy. It's right there. If you need a detail or a date, you just glance down. They can't even see it. You have your notes with some of the highlights, how you prepped for interview, as I'll teach you as we go along. You have a printout or two of their press release with a name or two highlighted in case I want to drop a name during. And now I can seamlessly move back and forth on a headset, on the telephone, between all this material. They hear nothing. They just hear brilliance. Like, gosh, John seems to know everything about us, and be ready. Yes, prepared. Or could be a video interview, which we're going to handle at the end of today's session. We're going to show you the entire setup. So don't answer questions. You heard me say it. We're going to use this to the device of it, basically to position and sell ourselves. Sometimes this means like a politician. Now, a few springs ago, Tim Cook, who's running Apple, was giving a talk to a college audience. It was not a commencement address. It was to a college class audience. I'm sure it's up on YouTube somewhere because everybody had their iPhones and recording. And so one of the students asked Tim a very, very tough question. Tim, when is it okay not to listen to our professors? Well, thank you for that softball right in front of the professor. Okay, so Tim's a very sharp guy and probably would make a very good politician, and he answered correctly like a politician. And he immediately said, what I think you're asking me, tricky way to rephrase very, very easily. What I think you're asking me is, when is it okay not to follow the rules? And I think you should rarely follow the rules, or you're never going to get. I think you should be writing the rules, or you're never going to get to what you're dreaming about. That's my advice to you. Great advice. Great advice. So think about rephrasing that answer if they didn't give you the right one, where you want to position and sell some aspect of yourself. What I think you're really getting at is this, and sell the piece of story that you'd like. It's your job to decide in advance what you want to convey to them. That means you have to know why you're more valuable than the next 5 or 6 people that you may want, or they may want to interview. You have to understand that it's chemistry and confidence, whether we like that or not. Yes, got to be capable and qualified. I'm not going to hire anybody that's not that. But it really comes down to chemistry and confidence. Chemistry, like, wow, great fit for the team. And I have confidence that if I roll the dice on you, I might get something very, very, very interesting here. So that's how you begin to build engagement, which is an awful lot closer to that style engagement. And it all comes from your story itself. So yeah, we've got to be interesting. We've got to be different. We've got to be capable and qualified, but we can't leave out all the pieces that make them relate to us, which could have to do with our profession, could have nothing to do with our profession. By the way, if I walked into an interview and I go to sit down and I suddenly see they have 2 big swords, like fencing swords, up on the wall, oh, you better believe sometime in the conversation, those fencing swords are going to come up. Because when I first moved to New York City 30 or more years ago, I was at NYU taking a fencing class, and I swear my legs still hurt from that posture. It's great exercise, by the way. But absolutely, even though that was a one-time event in John's history and its tangential connection to fencing, you better believe it's going to come up, because the more things we have in common, the more the chemistry spikes. This is also a paradigm shift in how you begin to present and sell yourself. All the pieces of your background, that's all the 8 or 9 pages of notes from Tuesday's resume lecture that really uncovered all the assets for your background. All of those, even for the interview, get filtered through that singular question we've been talking about all week. Why is it going to be the best business decision they choose to hire you? That means if I've got 25 items to share, I'm not bringing all 25 items to the discussion. It will be too much for them. I have to have the 25 items ready. And then in the moment, like a boxer light on their feet, I have to be ready to pick and choose the right story to reel in the big fish and get them to hire me. In doing so, I've got to use the mastery of all my communication skills, my soft skills, my emotional intelligent quotient, essentially, to engage them. By the way, this is all the other things about us, the personality traits, our style, our social graces. I mentioned it earlier in the week, so I'll mention it here again. In reality, I'm shy and introverted. And this is still who you see here. Do you think I'm shy and introverted during an interview? Well, not so they can see, but absolutely, that never changes. It's just below the surface. So technique can get you past whatever you need to once you understand your job is to go in there and influence them. Now, one of the ways to influence them is I'm getting ready for the interview. Let's imagine my interview is Tuesday at 10 a.m. Well, let's use real things. What is it right now? It's Thursday, a little after 10 a.m. So great, I've got a few days to prepare. First thing I'm going to do, if they sent me a list of names, my first question to you is, did they send you everyone you're going to meet with? Yeah, they sent me 2 or 3 names. My question was, did they send you everyone you're going to meet with? Well, I'm not really sure. That's the right answer. Now we're going to email them back. Well, I just emailed them this morning. We're going to email them again. It's worth it. And say, oh, by the way, looking forward to a great discussion Tuesday at 10 a.m. with Jack, Jill, and Jane. By the way, who else am I likely, very important word, to meet with so I can fully prepare for the meeting? Now, if you forget to use that word likely, they're going to go, oh, I'm not really sure. Oh, likely, probably. I think Jason and Tim are going to sit in, and maybe 1 or 2 of your peers might sit in. Okay, so I got 2 more names and a reference to 2 peers. I can look up the peers on LinkedIn and realize, oh, there's 6 peers. Which 2? I'm going to have to prepare on how to build chemistry, how to sell to each of the 6, because I don't know which of the 2 are going to be in my meeting. For all of these people that I know are going to be in the meeting, I'm going to open their profiles on LinkedIn, which triggers the marketing event again. Having looked at them, I'm going to ask them to connect if I have not already in the approach process, which I highly recommend long ago. But if you haven't, I open and ask to connect with a gentle message that reminds them, I'm looking forward to meeting with you Tuesday at 10 a.m. and I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Now, by the way, they may or may not accept until the interview. That's irrelevant. This is another fish hook with another worm tossed out into the pond, and we're waiting for that fish to wheel around and grab the worm and connect with them. This is a chance for them to look at your background. Message, by the way, clearly says, you're about to meet me. Oh, well, I should know you. I'm professionally appropriate. Gives them a little stroke to the ego with the I'd love to add you to my professional network. It's really just a guise to get them to look at your sales brochure one more time. Read about me again. I'm so dazzling before we meet on Tuesday. Also, each one of these times you get them to read about your background, that's almost like a inoculation, a vaccination that makes it harder for them to desire the competitor, even though you haven't seen the competitor, if you build out a great LinkedIn profile and resume. So you already saw the message, you already saw the basics of it. The whole idea is to get them over to our LinkedIn profile where they can sell themselves even before you walk in the door, and you can begin your conversation at a different place in the interview. All of this is sales nudging just before the interview. Small changes change perception. Be persuasive. That's our job. Now, let's take you through an actual interview plan. We're going to break this down. Every one of these areas we're going to drill down deep, so you can scroll back and rewatch as necessary. We're going to create an interview plan which involves building an agenda, doing a needs analysis, coming back to every one of these, selecting and customizing work-life stories. If there's no buy sign, we have to figure out what's missing. We have to overcome those objections. We've got to close them on why we're the best selection. We have to get that job or get the next interview. So that's the overview, but now let's actually break it down and give you the detail that's going to be very, very helpful. In building an agenda, this is no different than you working for some company. I have a product or service to sell to other companies. I have to go into that other company and I have to sell them on why I'm better than the competitor choice. If you're that straightforward and aggressive in the interview process, I doubt they're really going to like you. Ego and arrogance out of control, over the line, not going to pick you. Don't forget, they do want us dangerously close to the ego and arrogance line. Just don't cross it. Just don't cross it. So in building the agenda, it's the same as any sales meeting plan. So who am I meeting? How am I going to build chemistry with these people? What are their backgrounds? What do I think their concerns are? Which career stories should I talk about that would be most appealing to Jack or Jim or Jill? They may need different stories. You may meet them together or you may meet them all independently. We just don't know what will happen necessarily. What could make them jump out of their chair from all of my different stories I could tell? And what else do they need to hear to choose me? That's the basic agenda that you're going to build to go in. Now, I know that they run the meeting or seemingly run the meeting. I'd like you to run it like you're a puppet master, basically running things. And that means you have to go through step by step. So part 2 is to do what's called a needs analysis. This is a basic sales technique. It simply means don't say too much, don't answer too many questions before you confirm what the need really is. Maybe you have a misperception, wrong idea of what the need really is. Maybe you fell for the job posting and you thought that was the need. Most of the time, the job posting is like the side of the barn, and the need is somewhere on the side of the barn. The job posting itself doesn't necessarily tell you everything you need to know. It tells you some of the basics. And if you go in and sell to the wrong thing, that's a real problem. So literally, before you answer a single question, I want you to do a needs analysis. And then they go, John, great to meet with you. Tell me about yourself. They got that first question in before I could do the needs analysis. And I go, oh, I'd love to. You don't think I'm going to give them a negative pushback, right? It's all positive, 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 then change direction. So, I can't wait to tell you. Before I do, I'd love to hear from your perspective. Of course, I've done my research. I've looked at the role. I've looked at the company. I've looked at even your competitors. But I'd love to hear from your perspective or your opinion. As I step into this role, what do you see as the most important elements I should gain control of in the first, say, 30 to 60 days? Pause. That may sound just like a easy, relaxing question, but that is very strategically structured. There are secrets, secret problems, secret issues they'd like to solve that if you were aware of them, you could sell right to those issues. They'd hire you tomorrow. But they don't tend to publish those issues in the job posting. You have to pull them out of them because nobody wants to publish the dirty laundry of what needs fixing. So you've got to literally ask them. Now, stay away from this idea of 90 days. That triggers something very, very different with employment law in our head. The 30 to 60 days will get them to think about what's on fire, what just derailed, what's about to derail, what Band-Aids and fire hose does this person have to step in with right away. And then they're going to tell you about those things. And if you have experience solving those kind of issues, you go, Jack, Jim, Jill, that's so interesting. When I was with XYZ company, I handled a very similar issue, and this is what I did, and this was the outcome. Check John off for that one. They've got it. So needs analysis is very important, so you know which stories and how to sell it. You've got to hear from them. Now, let's imagine also back to the needs analysis, you are meeting with 3 separate people, like 30 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 30 minutes. Each one of them might have a different needs analysis answer. You've got to ask every single person that same question, because this one might tell you, well, this is so important to me. This is the key because it's important to me. And this person over goes, no. Actually, it's this over here that's really important because that's important to me. And you have to speak a little bit out of all sides of your mouth to satisfy and get every single person's vote. Next stage is to select those work-life stories. So as you do your research on the people, you begin to think about your audience. As you begin to prepare for that sales meeting on Tuesday, I now have to look backward at all the stories I've created from my actual deliverable past and go, well, which ones do I think are most likely the relevant ones that Jack or Jim or Jill would like to hear? Which ones illustrate my skill, my value, my interest? That's part of really preparing for the interview as well. So you're on the top of your game, and you could have a little cheat sheet notebook with just a few words of the story to remind you which ones to go to. Next thing is to overcome objections. Their title is decision maker. Their job is to object to you. That's how they find out whether you're the right one or not. Well, John, you don't have any of this background. I don't. We'll walk you through that. That's an agree but disagree technique. I'm going to agree to whatever they accuse me of not having, and then I'm going to disagree why that's valuable by saying something else afterward that presents a different value for me, that is a larger value than just that same value from the competitor. So objections are really interesting. You haven't worked since last year. You haven't worked in this industry. You haven't worked in this field. You haven't worked in nonprofit. You haven't worked in commercial. By the way, you know everything that they could accuse you of. You make a laundry list, and then you use this agree but disagree technique to get over it. So write down the objection, and how would I get over it with no guilt in the delivery? That's really important. Well, you haven't worked since last year. I haven't. Just like there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a gift from up above. You know, I had such a great run, you know, working with Goldman Sachs and Fidelity and all these really great brands over such a career that's really even amazed me. I hadn't had a career break in so long. So when I took the buyout package at the end of the year, you know, I really treated myself to one of those career breaks that I've just never been able to have, and spent a lot of time at home working on those projects that build up in the garage and everything else. But I tell you what, I saw this opportunity and I knew it was the right time to get back on the work track. Boom. I've overcome the objection of, you've been sitting around with your feet up having bonbons. Why won't someone hire you? No, I've been off busy. I'm just now, and I just spotted this. Boom. That's how you sell that. But you haven't worked in this industry. You know, I haven't. Let's take it nonprofit commercial, because that's the easier one without more specifics. So you haven't worked in nonprofit. You know, I haven't. You know, I've worked my entire career in the commercial environment. But what I've found looking at a lot of nonprofits and talking with a lot of my friends is most all of the people in nonprofit have been in nonprofit their whole careers. By spending my career in the commercial world, I have developed such business acumen and assets in project management and vendor management capabilities that I'm excited to bring all of that and leverage it to help this mission that your organization has really speaks to me. And boom, boom, boom. So you have to overcome that thing, realize that you're going to do a different job than just the person from the competitor. When I said a lot of people in nonprofits stay there for a long time, that planted another subliminal. The competitors, who are my competitors from other nonprofits, really, in that same function. So they've been at another nonprofit doing that same function, probably ineffectively, for quite some time. And you want to hire that person that's going to bring the same baggage, the same industry problems to you, or you want to hire someone fresh, sharp, passionate about your mission, that has business skills to address a new issue within nonprofit. It's a very easy sell. And same thing if we're going nonprofit commercial, or we haven't done the field or industry. You realize it's just I can understand why you see it that way, but here's why it's a valuable asset. Practice the agree but disagree technique. It will help you quite a bit. Next step on the interview plan is when there is no buy sign. Now let's be clear what a buy sign is. There's only 2 buy signs in the hiring process. One buy sign is, gosh, I'd love to get your references. I'd like to move toward offer. Fantastic. Headed toward offer. That's a buy sign. By the way, when they ask you for the references on the application, that is not a buy sign. That is an invasion of your privacy. Shame, shame, shame on them for even asking for your personal private network of information. So inappropriate at the application stage. They haven't even discussed anything with you. They don't have rights to your personal private network. So don't turn it over then. The only time you ever turn over references is when they've made that magic phrase happen, like, I'd love to move you toward offer, John. We need to check your references. Fantastic. I've already gotten them up to the altar. Now we're waiting at the altar. Don't give them the references before the altar. The other reason for that, by the way, is as a recruiter for many years, I've certainly seen the reference or someone the reference knows get the job. And that is very, very tough to deal with. We don't want that to happen. So the other buy sign besides the request for references is actually offering you the job. Or the other buy sign, there's a third slight buy sign that's not the total close, and that is they indicate they want to bring you back to meet somebody else. That's already, I won, and we're moving to the next step. Don't interrupt a win. Take the win, go to the next step. So if there's no buy sign, we're going to use some closing questions. Here's an example of what no buy sign sounds like, which is really nice. They go, gosh, John, what an amazing background. The companies you work for, the experience you bring, I could see that you'd be incredible in this role. Sounds great so far, right? And then they segue over to, but we have a few more people to see. It's probably going to be 4 or 5 weeks before we have a decision, and we'll be back in touch. Well, thank you so much for that. So it was all nice sugar. And then don't call me, I'll call you if we choose you. That's no buy sign, no matter how nicely they did it. So now I'm going to use closing questions that will help them visualize this hiring process as a two-dimensional timeline. I just say it and they imagine it in their brain and see it. And what's going to happen is they're somehow going to see the finish line, and they're going to see me somewhere along this pathway toward the finish line. And this part you won't like. What that's going to cause is they're going to think of what's wrong with you. I know. We don't want them to really think about what's wrong with us during the interview process, but actually we really do. Because if I walk out that door or off this Zoom call or whatever we may be on without getting that buy-in, they're probably going to choose someone else. They're probably going to have doubts about me. So I've got to really help them visualize why I'm exciting. So here's a couple closing questions. As they're wrapping up, and any other questions to me, I might go, well, Jack, what have you not heard? Or maybe what have we not discussed? A little positive and negative there on the energy, because you really don't understand how people's brains are wired. You have to play both audiences. That would help you in your decision process for this role. By the way, that's a very, very good question. And again, they'll imagine the process as a timeline. They'll imagine you somewhere along it, helping you with the decision process. They're going to think exactly what's wrong with you because of the not heard, not discussed. What did John avoid talking about? Which answer didn't I like? And they're going to go, well, John, as I said, you have an incredible background, but I think you're probably a little weak in area A. Pause. Gosh, was area A important? Oh, it was in the job description. I decided it was important. I've only worked on 2 projects ever in area A, so I was scared and I avoided talking about it. So it was important to getting hired and you avoided speaking about it. Okay, so let's handle it now in this process. By the way, that's pretty good, but it's not enough for me. If I'm doing it myself, I want a little more amp to it. So I'm going to go, Jack, let me ask you this. What have you not heard? Or maybe what have we not discussed that would help you in your selection of me as don't say candidate. We're going to change that typo, as the best individual for this role. Candidates are more interchangeable. You're always an individual. Your competitor is always a candidate. Yeah. You have to learn that stuff. Let me just grab a tissue here real quick. So you have to think about that. Those slight pieces are all selling pieces as well. Again, the best candidate for the role, the best individual, that's up on the platter. You're up on the silver platter now, and they're really going to throw some darts over what is holding back their decision process. This is your chance to overcome their objection right now while you're on the phone. For the interview plan itself, build the agenda, do the needs analysis, prepare your work-life stories. If they're not a buy sign, you have to overcome that. Overcome those objections to get the job and get to the next interview or get to the offer stage or whatever that might be. We're going to take you through a different way to think about prepping for your next interview, and that's the interview checklist. So this is another way to think about all the different aspects of what we've talked about, but I want you to think about everything. We're going to complete our research on the job, on the company culture. Company culture, I may not even be able to ever figure it out until I'm even working there, but every person I meet will disclose a little bit of company culture to me. Also, where all of those people came from before they joined this company will tell me something a little bit about company culture. Company research, read every word of the website. Well, that's a big website. You want me to read every word of it? Do you want this job? Read every word of the website. This is a date. You've got to be ready. Do your research. The job, why don't you put that job description aside for the moment? You think you're right for the job? Why don't you write that job description out the way you think it should be? Now go back to their job description. Yeah, glean and pull over a few things. Maybe even look at some of their competitors and see what the competitors are doing in that job. And why don't you compile the right job posting just for yourself so you understand really what you're selling toward? That's the job. And then when you get in there in person in the talk, that's where you do the needs analysis to confirm that your analysis of what they're really looking for is correct, or am I off target and have to refocus where I'm like throwing my arrows. Do the needs analysis early in the meeting. Your body language is speaking volumes. You have to be careful. Now, years ago, before I was even a recruiter, when I was just interviewing to be a recruiter, I was so excited to get into the field, and I get this interview at this one firm. And this will tell you how long ago it was. I arrived for the interview. The door to the office suite in Midtown opens, and out rolls an entire cloud of smoke coming out of this office. I'm like, I am, my mother, full disclosure, smoked 3 or 4 packs a day and died of natural causes in her 80s. It's like, wow, good genes. Thank you, Mom. But the reality is, there's no chance I'm ever going to work here. I am wasting my time. I should just turn around right now and walk out that door. Are you kidding me? You know how hard it is to book an interview? I know I am never working at this company. Therefore, I have a get out of jail free card to spend an hour or however long this is to try out every technique that I have, every storytelling presentation piece I have, to sharpen the edge of my presentation tools. Now, this individual, and we're getting back to body language, this individual, I get into his office, and probably not a surprise to you, his ashtray, which was a large one, looked just like my mother's from years ago, which was row after row after row of butts piled up. I'm like, oh my gosh, and they never empty it. Abrasive individual, which was not really a surprise. And in the middle of the interview, he gets a phone call. That's okay. It's his work day. And just pause for a minute, gets his phone call, and up go the feet on the desk toward me. I'm like, well, okay, dress shoes on the desk toward me now. And I'm like, would you like me to step out? Would you like me to step out? And I'm like, it's all part of the interview. He's like barking orders over the phone. And most people would like, I'll wait till I'm ready. I'll wait till they're ready for me. It's like, no, you are on point the whole time, staying poised. Every moment is an interview. So watch the body language, watch the sweaty palms, all those kinds of things. Watch the eyeballing. Oh, I know we really want this, but you have to occasionally look away to think about something, and then look back, and then maybe look away. Even if I don't need to look away, I have to look away to give them a little room on occasion. Dress like you are a success. I was out on the New York waterfront this morning doing a little cardio, 5-finger shoes, running tights, t-shirt. If I showed up here or to any interview like that, I don't think they're going to hire me or take my advice or opinions. You have to look like the product. Now, I have a lot of clients in all fields, but I have some clients that are in the design field. And, you know, individuals working in design rarely want to dress up. In most of their work life, they get to not dress up, maybe a little just casual shirt and pants type thing. They don't really have to dress. But so for those individuals, it's particularly hard to get them to put the suit on, go in for the interview. I'm like, oh, but I don't have to wear a suit in my life. I'm like, okay, but if your competitor walks in that door with a suit looking like $1 million, your competitor is ahead of you if all other things are equal. You want to let your competitor get ahead of you because of a style issue, even if they told you not to wear dress clothes. As a recruiter, I had managers that would go, John, don't send him in here in a suit. Our suits are in the closet in case we have to go out to meet a client. You know, we're all in jeans, whatever. Just send him in whatever. Absolutely, Eric. Absolutely. And I'm talking to my client. I'm like, you're in a suit. And then I explain that they were told not to be in a suit. But when you go into that office, they go, oh, didn't John tell you you don't have to be in a suit? Oh, you know, he did, but I have another meeting this afternoon, so I thought I should wear one. Wonder who that other meeting is with. A competitor company of yours. So if you like me, you should hire me. I'm not actually going to say that, but that is the subtext. And I don't care what it is. You have to look like, wow, this guy is having the best day ever in his career. That's the right look for an interview. Are you listening? I gave you so much to think about today. You're going to forget to listen. Your job is to listen, take notes, and react to that in the moment, not just stay on your agenda. Boxer, light on their feet, ready to move. You're there to sell yourself the whole time. I know you're there to really evaluate, is this right for me? Is this the right move for my career? Do I like these people? But if you let them see that, they're never going to pick you. Years ago, as a recruiter, I had someone that, well, I was doing a very, very hot little space within technology. And those candidates at that time, boy, they really got full of themselves because a zillion recruiters were coming after them with buckets of money to hire them for their companies. And I had this one person who was very standoffish during the 3 or 4 layers of interview. But by the end of it, oh my gosh, they fell in love with this company. I told you this was a great company. This is one of the stellar ones you should be working for. And yet you acted like a standoffish jerk, self-absorbed, evaluating whether they were good enough for you in the interview process. And guess what? They picked somebody else. They would have picked you because you had stellar background, but basically you didn't remember it was a date. Don't forget the date piece. Everybody wants more money. Would you like more money? Here's how to get more money. Don't talk about money. Don't talk about money. But. There is no but. You know when you find out about money? When they make you an offer. So that's when you talk about money. This also involves a lot of thinking, a lot of sensory stuff in conversation. If I even sense they're going to ask me a question about money next, I have to introduce some compelling idea, question, something to get them to posit upon that they forget to ask me about money. By the way, my other half is English as a second language, and they've certainly mastered this. One of the large institutions in town, this was a couple jobs ago, very large educational institution in town. Some might say the best educational institution in town, but you know, those are things are all arguable. But you can imagine, the reason I tell you that is you can imagine a lot of bureaucracy. And so my other half did not apply online because it's just going into that giant HR function. Instead, for this big behemoth of an institution, they went right to the decision maker. All the techniques I've just taught you over this entire week, they couldn't resist. They get them in for interview. And I think my other half went through like 2 or 3 face-to-face interviews. Then there was a 6-panel interview. Then there's a, can you come up and have an offsite coffee? You know, that's another interview. That's another interview. There's no way getting around it. And then we thought we're getting the call, and they're like, we're having an open house on Saturday. Would you like to come work the open house? Yeah, sure. I'd love to. You're not going to get that job. So we went and worked the open house, and then we get the call after. We're going, you're not in the system. Brilliant. I'm not in the system because we didn't apply online, which means they have no idea how much my other half was making. Had they understood what my other half was making, there never would have been an interview in the first place. But my other half is also a superstar in their field. I hate to say things like this, but they walk on water in their field, and they're incredibly humble. None of those things go together. So it's a miraculous thing. And my gosh, they hired this person significantly outside their salary range because they were the right solution that never would have made it there had it started with HR. So had they known about money early, they wouldn't have done it either. Now, how we know all of this transpired is we got that call and they heard how much my other half was making. And this is what happened on the call. Here's the actual transcript, almost actual transcript. I guess we're going to have to look at the top of the next range. Oh, yeah, I definitely like that sound for the sound of where we're going to start the negotiation process. And we got another, I don't really know, $2,642.41. I don't know how they get down to the penny in those places, but boy, do they. That's how you get the best offer. I don't care if it's a stinky, terrible, insulting offer. They must make the offer first. Whoever speaks first loses. Let them make you a lowball offer, and you can come up around and renegotiate. By the way, there's a whole negotiation lecture you can look up on mine on LinkedIn and over on my SelfRecruiter blog. Time to get it right. 2 things. First off, make sure you don't be late for the interview. You have to get in the area up to 30 minutes in advance, not in their office. Get for a coffee, get for a park bench, go over your notes, make sure your calorie intake is correct, make sure your caffeine intake is correct, time for a bathroom visit, all those things we need. Go over your notes, and then 10 minutes beforehand, close your notebook. Trust that all that homework will be present and available to you. Center yourself, give yourself enough time to get through building security and floor security, arriving 5 to 15 minutes before the scheduled interview. If you have an 11 o'clock interview and you show up at 10:35, John, your 11 o'clock is here. Oh, my day is already out of control. Now I got to come out there and be nice to you. Oh, hi, Jack. I'm running really busy today, so it'll probably be right around 11, but I can't wait for our discussion. Oh, I'm messing up my day already. You need to think about removing stress. That's why they hire you. Properly being timed. Just showing up early to show your eagerness is not caring about the team, caring about everything. You need to make things right. Next stop, opportunity. The whole time you have to talk about opportunity and how exciting it is. And then at the very end, you have to ask for that job. I don't literally mean, gosh, I want this job, although you could use those words. I mean, as simple as Jack, Jim, Jill, I'm excited. What's our next step? Well, John, we're going to walk you down the hall to meet Jane next. I thought that was on the agenda. Yes, I know. I saw that on the agenda. But they need to hear it like, ooh, I want this job. Because afterward, they're going to be in a roundtable discussion at some point where they go, here's the resumes. What do we think of these people? Who do we remember? Oh, I want the job. I want the job. They remember that person. The real homework is preparing the answers to the questions you might be asked. You know the questions. Write them all down. That's your field, right? Every question that you could be scared that they might ask you, and then craft a compelling, engaging answer you might give to your dear best friend. To those questions, add 3 self-recruiter questions, which will help you. Tell me why I should hire you over all others that I see. Not likely to ask you that this way. This is kind of a throwing down the gauntlet, but gosh, elements of this answer have to be factored into all my other answers. That's really, really important. Tell me why my work life will get easier or better if I hire you. Very much not likely to ask you this question, but absolutely elements of this answer have to be integrated into all of my answers. Absolutely. And of course, the last one you really already know, which is, why is it the best business decision I will make today if I choose to hire you? And of course, again, not likely to ask you it in that form, but elements of that answer have to be there. Practice and role play. I know a good coach if you need some role play help. By the way, if your resume and LinkedIn aren't working and selling and lifting your value for your career, gosh, you need help with that, reach out to me. I'd be happy to work with you. Your follow-up, your thank you notes can solve your problems in advance. That means we have to self-diagnose. When we walk out of that interview, we don't go home. We go to the coffee shop. We go to the park bench. We do an information dump down on our paper. Every tangential thought I'm having, no matter how fleeting or weird, there's a reason you're having it. Capture it now, this debrief. This debriefing is where it's a cross-examination, a grilling. I've got to squeeze out everything, every thought about this interview. How was it different than I expected? How was the job different? How was the person different? All these different things that could help you. That means the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that went well. Where did I stick my foot in my mouth? Oh, I wish I could give a better answer on that. Oh, what did I avoid? All those things that mess up the interview. By the way, the debriefing process is not about beating yourself up. The debriefing process is a healthy, important critiquing process that helps you know what to repeat next time, what to change next time, and where there's opportunity you missed that was really right there. Now, if they don't move forward with you, that means we have to know what the reason's going to be. So after the thank you notes, everything else, let's imagine that we are doing this debrief and we go, bet you not, they're not going to hire me because I'm weak in area A. That's the tough question you ask yourself last, by the way. If they don't move forward with me, what's the reason going to be? And don't think about it. This is gut reaction, like boom, funny bone type thing. Then you go, oh, it's going to be because I'm weak in area A. Well, did I talk about it? Oh, I avoided talking about it. So after the normal thank you, and by the way, please never again, ever thank someone for their time. That makes you subservient to the other individual. Everybody's time is valuable. Thank them for the great insights, the discussion, something meaningful, but please don't diminish yourself by thanking them for their time. You need to thank me for my time. You know, you're both valuable is what I'm getting at. So thank them for the opportunity, the insights, everything else. And then go, by the way, we didn't get a lot of opportunity to talk about area A, where I've worked on projects such as this or that. Actually, the only 2 I've worked on, but that's letter true. And yet the implication is those are representative. I never said it. If you'd like to discuss that, reach out at any time. This exact technique saved my promotion at one point. Years and years ago, before I was ever a recruiter, I was running the number 1 department in the number 4 store in the country for a retail organization that had 121 stores in the country. So I had the number 1 department in the whole country. Big store, number 4 store in the country. And my store manager goes up to be country manager of Canada. So John naturally goes, well, I should rise to the throne and become general manager of this location since I'm already number 1 in my P&L for my department in the entire country. And I go into interview, and the deciders were my regional manager, who really loved my P&L and knew me, and the other regional manager from another location, different part of Manhattan, both working together now, who never really got me. I worked for him for like 2 or 3 months at the start, a couple of years earlier, and then switched partnerships I was working under for the company. He was really looking for friends to go out and drink at night. and I was a little older than the rest of the employees because I'd moved to New York for a different reason. And I'm just getting revenue. That's why I'm working here overnight. I'm not here to go out drinking with everyone. And he didn't get me. So even in the interview process, I don't know about John. I'm like, what do you know about John's P&L, which is #1 in the whole country? He didn't talk about opportunity. He didn't talk about his plan for the store. I didn't express my vision for the store in the interview process. Part of the problem was, of course, at that point, I was never a recruiter previously. And although I was very good in conversation and all those things, and I'd been hiring and firing people for many years in various different roles. So I had that end of it from an experience level. But my gosh, I didn't really understand how it was all going to work. And you have to think about, you got to get out there and sell, and you've got to present, and you have to change their minds. So I want you to think about whatever it might be. These things can dramatically shift things. So I wrote that. I get out of my interview and I thought, I think I did pretty well. I called my spy in HQ. Always good to have a spy in HQ. And I thought, yeah, I think it went pretty well. No. They're in there talking about you right now, arguing something about your vision for the store. I'm like, forgot the vision. And so I quickly shot off a thank you note. Thanks, Jack, Jim, whatever their names were at that time. Very, very excited about, moving forward with the opportunity. We didn't have a lot of time in our discussions to talk about my vision for the store. If you'd like to talk about that, reach out on my cell at any time. Click send, and immediately I'm like bullet pointing out my vision. They're going to call me any second. Never called me. Got the job. Oh, look, he has a vision. Well, he can't affect anything anyway. Okay, he has a vision. As we move toward a close, we're going to shift over to show you basically how to set up a video interview setup. But I want to remind you, as we're coming toward the end here, it's about chemistry. It's about them before it's about you. It's just like a date. You've got to be real and genuine. You've got to show interest. You have to not look at the other people around them. It's a date. It's about them. Let's get into video interviewing as we wrap up over these next few minutes here. It can happen over all different platforms. You're going to have to get used to those different platforms. And it can be scheduled, unscheduled. We already talked about all that piece of it. Your job is to get to the finish line in this process. Most times it's going to involve video conferencing these days. We were in COVID for a number of years, and now we're post-COVID, I guess. I'm still waiting for that. Let's talk about, now that we've all become very familiar with Zoom and other platforms, let's talk about what we should see. Chemistry and confidence win the day. That's what's going to win the day. Do we see it here? Do we see it here? By the way, I just pulled these off of Pinterest. Somebody had collected a lot of Zoom screens. In this case, I don't even think this person knows they're interviewing for a job. They're certainly not interviewing for a sports team. This is not okay. There's no chemistry. There's no confidence in this setup. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we feel it here? Do we feel it? No, I crouching down like this. I don't really feel it. I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it. In fact, I can't even see it. All I can see is the light out your window. So that doesn't really work either here. I need to see you, not the sky. That's not going to help. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we see it? Do we see it here? Well, I'm sure they feel like they have chemistry and certainly feel like they have confidence, but I don't feel either one of them. I just feel overarching style and lack of technical knowledge. I don't need to look up your nose. You notice the entire time you're not looking up John's nose the entire time. That's because the camera is level to my eye. Yes, I may go up and down everything else, but you're not looking at my nose. You're not looking at the ceiling the entire time. I don't need to see the ceiling. Don't need to see your nose. Boom mics. Let's talk about those boom mics. Oh, I get you like the sound. I get you like it this way. But you know what? I'll give you the confidence one here, but I don't feel chemistry. And actually, after I give you the confidence vote, I'm going to take it away because I think that boom mic makes me feel like you're just pretending you have confidence. So that's not going to help. Also, distracting picture in the background is not going to help. I keep looking at that versus you. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Now, a little bit of a serious look here, but that works for certain jobs? Absolutely. I feel the chemistry. I feel the confidence here. It's actually a nice staging setup with one minor problem, and that is a large picture just behind the head upstaging this person. And I keep trying to figure out what is that picture behind your head? And that's a distraction. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it here? I'll give them the chemistry. I'll give them the confidence. But the problem here is, again, we've allowed ourselves to be upstaged by this curved wall, all these pictures, the reflection, and my desire to really go, well, what are those pictures? Can I zoom in to see what that is? That is not why you're here. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'll give the chemistry on this one. I'll give the confidence here. But again, I don't think these like Princess Leia headphones are really these medium headphones, but they're still like Princess Leia style headphones. I don't think those really work to your advantage, and it's a distraction. By the way, the image background was a great image that added focus to the person. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we see it? I absolutely do. This background that you see on this guy is a stock image. Absolutely. I can see it's a stock image right away. But they picked a very good one with depth, with a slight bit of darkness, that your eye goes to the lightest thing on the screen, which is the individual. It adds focus to that person. So this is a very, very good one. I think I have one more to show you, but I'd get rid of those medium headphones too. We don't like those. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we see it? Do we see it? Actually, I do. I see the chemistry. I see the confidence. To me, this is the winner of all of them, even though this still has some problems. I like the framing of the three ridges on the left. I like the framing of the little bit of a picture on the right. Yep, I know it's a picture. I can clearly see it. It doesn't keep distracting me. This person is center stage. Now, I wish the lighting were a little more even versus all one-sided type lighting that we have here in this. I wish we weren't back to looking up a little bit again. We just need to pull that camera down a little bit. Lift up your computer if you need to, all those things. This one's the winner if all things are equal, and all things are never equal. It's about aligning as many dominoes as possible. So let's show you actual setup that I'm working in front of. Well, I'll show you three setups actually. So this is my other half's pandemic setup. It's no longer up because they're back to their office, at least 4 days a week. Other day they work from the other room now. But during pandemic, when it was the 5 days a week working from home, this is the setup. Now, I don't like looking into the direct sunlight because I have hazel colored eyes and they're very light sensitive. Somehow, when I get on camera, all of these lights seem to be fine because mentally I'm going, I'm on camera. It's okay. Otherwise, my eyes would be freaking out over the light. It's a lot of light. But we have to be well lit. We have to be positioned properly. Everything has to be right for us. May need a ring light or computer light of some sort to look balanced and correct. Now, I'm going to show you my lights. I have three very large box lights all around me that create this lighting here, and you get a very different effect from that kind of lighting. I do want to point out those ring lights usually have color adjustment buttons, so you can change the color tone to work with your camera, so you end up either not looking like a ghost or not looking blue or all those other things. To sound great, you probably need a condenser mic. This is a condenser mic. This actual mic is what you're listening to right now. It's standing right in front of me, just out of, I guess it's just out of camera shot, but it's sitting right here. Any condenser mic, not very expensive. Yes, the mics on the computers today, especially on the Macs, are very, very good, but you'll sound even better with a condenser mic. And isn't your job search worth sounding the very, very best? Now, in addition to that, you probably need height. So when I was doing these originally, I was doing them in the main bedroom where I put up a green screen on the wall. I had literally 1.5 feet between the wall and the bed to stand, where I would put my ironing board. I actually have these same boxes. I've kept the same boxes. I build this up on there, and then you see the laptop has to go up. Now, what you don't see in this screen is I also have a camera on top of my laptop. Now it has a built-in camera, but I have a separate 4K camera on top of it to give a better image. So not shown here is that, but most people can just use the camera built into their computer. The right height, the right light, the right sound. Here's a reverse look. So you can understand this is, even though I'm in the other end of the apartment, I'm more in the front alcove area that I've now built out to studio. This essentially is the same amount of space. So when I was in that part of the apartment doing it, or I'm standing here, I'm literally in about just a little bit over 1.5 square feet, a little bit of a supersized box, 1.5 square feet. And John's feet don't move except for up and down. My body may move a little bit like this, and the entire time I stay perfectly on camera in focus. And does it take practice not to move your feet? Oh, John's off camera again. Yes, it does. Does it take practice to feel comfortable in this tiny amount of space? Absolutely. It's also why I like to throw a studio screen behind me to give it a little bit more natural depth. Think about your setup. It's very important. Let's go back to that one more second here, because I want you to think about, as you're standing here, the other thing that for interviewing is so, so important is you must arrive at a place where you do not need to look at the screen. You do not need to see that other person. Oh, I know you desire to. You need to fall in love with the camera lens. This is me needing to see the other person and talking to the other person. This is not very engaging. This is me speaking to you, looking at the camera, engaging and sharing my thoughts directly with you. And that has a very, very different outcome. If I need to see what your reaction is every time I'm looking away from you, I'm not making the same connection. So first off, change your screens and put them wherever they need to be. Around your camera, you can put, if you're up against a wall, especially behind, you can put Post-it notes and things all around your camera to remind you of what you'd like to say. But your job is to fall in love with that camera lens. It's the camera lens is the other person. And don't be afraid to give them a little bit of the smiling eyes and whatever's necessary. Don't forget also to have a place for things like this. I have a remote control and a coffee. It's literally sitting on this stool right there next to my setup. Notes, everything else go there. So think about all the things that are involved in really presenting a great setup. Don't just present whatever your apartment is. Swap out the back screen, either virtually, as you see over under the box right over here. That's a virtual screen on this side of it. That's behind that little flag piece. Or this is a literal screen. Whoop, here it is. It's a literal screen right behind me there, creating a visual. So whatever your setup is, just make sure that you're clearly lit and you're not just presenting like you're sitting in your apartment, because that doesn't really convey the things that we'd like. Well, brings us to the end of a very, very full session today. Thank you guys for joining in. If you need help with your interviewing, obviously I do deep interview preparation, really understanding how to break down and sell to the right audiences for that job that you're after. If you need help with that, reach out. If you need help elevating your career brand across your resume or LinkedIn profile, if you are getting stuck in your job search, not getting to the right people, or getting stuck getting screened out by HR, reach out. I can certainly help you. All my services are over under the services tab on my SelfRecruiter website, and check out the blog on SelfRecruiter, which has all of the videos and all the advice articles. Thank you guys for tuning in. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. is supercharging your job search. Once you have the right resume, once you have the right LinkedIn profile, and understand how I'm going to position and sell myself when I get a chance to interview, then I have to put together a proper job search. A proper job search should be delivering one brand new, fresh interview each week. That's not the follow-up, second, third, fourth interview for all those other opportunities. Oh, I like those too. I like those too. This is one brand new interview every single week is the goal. And tomorrow I'll teach you how to create that. That is how you get to a place where you get multiple offers simultaneously, and then you have real choice in your career. This has been Interview Intervention. Thank you guys for joining in. Please do like, comment, share with all your friends. Everything else, it really does help. And thank you guys for tuning in today. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.